Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand Film, and today I'm bringing you my review of Saw 10, a little bit after the cinema release, about a month after the cinema release, but in time for it to be released and available to buy and rent digitally from the 30th of October, this coming Monday as I sit and record this, available courtesy of Lionsgate UK. Now, Saw 10, John Kramer's back, Tobin Bell's back. The most disturbing installment of the Saw franchise yet explores the untold chapter of Jigsaw's most personal game. Set between the events of Saw 1 and Saw 2, a sick and desperate John travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure in the hopes of a miracle cure for his cancer, only to discover the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. Armed with a newfound purpose, the infamous serial killer returns to work, turning the tables on the con artists in his signature visceral way through devious, deranged, and ingenious traps. Here is a trailer for the film.
Out of all the men to cheat, you picked John Kramer?
The cancer is still spreading. I'm afraid there's nothing else we can do. There is one person who might be able to help.
Our program is a two-pronged treatment outside Mexico City. The results have been stunning.
She saved my life.
You're in very good hands with us.
After that, what happens then?
Your whole life happens then. John Kramer.
According to these scans, the tumor was never removed.
How much time do I have?
Months, at best.
I still have a lot of work that needs to be done. Hello, everyone. It's time to play a game. You all pretended to cure me, but what I have planned for each of you is very real.
Peace came upon me. No light, no sound.
The only thing I have not provided is your anesthetic. But trust me, you will want to remain alert. Out of all the men to cheat, you picked John Kramer? Please, don't hesitate. Place a big enough piece of your cerebral tissue into the glass enzyme tank. This will save your life.
So sleep, silent.
This is not retribution. It's a reawakening. Live or die. The choice is yours.
Okay, so to give you a bit more of a sort of potted synopsis, and not really to go too much into depth if you've not seen this yet. So John Jigsaw is told that he has an advanced brain cancer, which we know, which if you're a fan of the series, you know that that was the sort of the way that it was going. And if for whatever reason you've seen Saw 1 and you're thinking, I'm going to wait and I'm going to watch Saw 10, so I'm watching them in chronological order, you still know he's got brain cancer. He's been given months to live, and after a CT scan, he witnesses a custodian, somebody working in the hospital, trying to steal something. And the trap that's on the poster of the two light tubes sort of crossing in the necks, that is this sort of fanciful trap that is going on here where his eyes don't stand a chance, basically. But it's not something that has actually happened. Jigsaw's just imagining it, and sort of clearly his mind is going that way after he's sort of thinking about his own mortality, really. And John later goes to a cancer support meeting. He meets a guy called Henry. Now, Henry is claiming that he's been cured from a terminal cancer after this meeting. And he shows John a scar on his stomach as if to sort of say, look, I've got better from this thing because of this doctor called Dr. Peterson. Now, John contacts Doctor's daughter Cecilia gets back to him and says, look, I've got a clinic in Mexico City. We're having to move around the place because these things aren't necessarily approved by people like your FDA and all that kind of stuff. So actually, we just need to move around. And if you want to come to Mexico, and we'll give you this treatment. And I think she charges him something like $250,000, like 250 grand or something silly like that. And you see John go in, and he meets all these people who work there. So obviously, doctors, surgeons, anesthetists. He bumps into and somebody else who's just had his treatment done. He gets put under. He goes under the knife. He wakes up in a very luxurious sort of like room, and it seems like he's got a new lease on life. But we know, I mean, from the trailer anyway, that he gets defrauded out of it. But we know as Saw fans, something's not right here because we've seen Saw 3. We know that he gets, part of his skull taken off because they're trying to still work on this cancer. So something just doesn't go right here. Now, I'm not going to go too much into depth in terms of spoiler territory and things like that. I think this is definitely a film that people should be going into spoiler free, especially those Saw fans who, I mean, realistically, if you're a Saw fan, you've probably seen it at this point. If you have some sort of a vested interest in any of these films, you'd know that you're going to go in spoiler free anyway, or that you should do. So to try and get us to this point, because we're in 2023 now, and this is the 10th Saw film. Now, if you're like me, and especially when I was more so of a physical media collector with my DVDs and my Blu-rays and all that kind of stuff, the release order and the names of these films would bug me immensely. So you've got Saw 2004, the original Saw film, which to me is still one of my favorite films of all time. It was an ingenious twist. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Someone claimed to tell me the other day that they saw that twist come in. Give over. Get off. No, you didn't. Saw 2. I enjoyed Saw 2. I thought it was just taking the world again and once again expanding on it. Saw 3. I'm not too much of a fan of the third one. I think it's good. I think people sort of put it quite high in the sort of pantheon of everything that has been released related to Saw, but I don't know. There was something about it with me that just didn't quite click. Saw 4 I really like. I think Saw 4 is very underrated, and the idea that it's running at the same time as Saw 3, and then obviously giving it a new lease on life with the whole Hoffman twist. 5 is probably the worst. It's still passable. It's still something that you can watch, especially if you were doing these. You wouldn't just skip 5. 6, again, another massively underrated one, directed by Kevin Grutter, who also directed this one, which might say something about why I enjoy this one as much as I did. You then get to Saw the Final Chapter, which is the 7th film, which obviously didn't actually end up being the final chapter, but a lot of fan service in that one. I was actually watching part of it again the other day. The thing that bugs me the most about that one is because it was a 3D conversion, and to make the blood look like blood, a lot of it was pink, which was bizarre. You then got Jigsaw, which was like a quote unquote spin off reboot thing that happened before the first one happened. So we went back again, and there was another apprentice, and blah 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 blah. Which was, again, it was fine, but it was a bit strange that they went the way that they did. And then we got Spiral, which was interesting, but I think they wanted to do something new and original with the Saw franchise. It didn't quite work with Chris Rock in a dramatic role. Samuel L. Jackson in the Saw film, like, whoever thought that had happened. And then we get to Saw 10. And naturally what they've done is, instead of going, well, we're not trying to continue a story, because realistically, you're now 7 films after he died. What is it that you can do? Because Spiral did this thing of, is there a Jigsaw copycat? Is there somebody who is copying what Jigsaw's done in the past because he's been so prolific? So surely there are going to be people that try and copy what it is that he's done. Whereas Saw 10 goes, we're not going to do that. We're going to go back and we're going to sort of peek in a gap and tell you a story that happened between the gap. Now, there's pros and cons to that. In that, I can believe that Jigsaw went to Mexico between the events of Saw 1 and Saw 2 and tried to get himself better. What I struggled with watching Saw 10 was Tobin Bell, bless him, looks as old as he's ever looked. So I didn't really have too much of an issue with him 10 years on from the first film playing a version of himself 10 years younger, if that makes sense. But Shawnee Smith as Amanda, now I don't know if it was the wig or if it was just the time passing, but I found it quite difficult to believe that this was the young, youthful Amanda that I'd just seen or was about to see burying herself in a needle pit and chucking syringes all over the place. Now, the wig that they've given her for this is awful and doesn't look like it. It's like Amanda's got a Karen haircut essentially. And I don't know, there were just elements of that really took me out of it. But I am purely being nitpicky, and I'm being nitpicky just to provide a bit of balance because I thought Saw 10 was great. It's one of my favorite films of the year up to now. And I think the reason for that is because, yes, there are little elements of fan service in there. There are things that us Saw fans are going to go and watch and, make sure that we enjoy and get the enjoyment out of it. The traps are some of the most brutal traps in any of the Saw films. Now, but I think the reason why the brutality works and the reason why the sort of shock value is there is because it actually takes a while to get to a trap. Usually you start a Saw film and within the first 5 minutes you're seeing someone in the trap, you're seeing something happen. I think about the pendulum in one of them. I think about the woman chopping her arm off and throwing it in the thing, and just usually you're starting off the Saw 2, the guy with the eye and the scalpel. Usually you start off with a trap. Here, you get the fanciful light tube sort of imagination trap, but actually, we take a long time seeing John Kramer, the human side of John Kramer, trying to just get a cure for himself, alluding to the fact that some of the work that he does is a little bit, off the nose. But actually, because it takes so long, I could forgive you if you sort of came out of it and wondered, am I actually still watching a Saw film here? Or thinking, oh, hang on a minute, they've really gone a different way with Saw now. They're not even horror films, they're not even like gore films anymore. But when we eventually get to the point where he's picked his victims and he's picked the people that he's going to put in this room and strapped to things and all that kind of stuff, that's when good old fashioned Saw kicks in. The leg sever trap, which is one of the first that you see in this sort of like, I don't know, like spot of these people in this room, is again one of the most brutal. Like I usually when I watch these films, and I'm bearing in mind that I'm going back 10 years now. You just sort of go, oh, I can relate to that. Yeah, that'd probably hurt. But this person going through the leg with a very, very fine wire saw, oh yeah, I felt it. I felt it. The use of intestines, I'm just going to mention that. Yep. Innovative. Didn't see that coming. The skull drill took me back to Saw 3. The radiation I thought was okay. It was probably the weakest of the traps. I think. You can understand the pain that obviously the person would be going through, but I think for everything that we got to at that point, I thought it was a little bit, for lack of a better word, timid. And then the final bloodboarding was interesting. And again, it's all boiling down to Tobin Bell in this film. And I've said this to people who, when they knew that I'd gone and seen Saw 10, and they sort of said to me, like, what did you think of it and all that kind of stuff. The main thing that I was getting across was this is Tobin Bell's best performance as Jigsaw, bar none, bar any of the other films. Like, this performance from Tobin Bell, I did not expect this happening. and he blew me away in this film. It's very nuanced. He goes from not cruel, but you sort of understanding the why he's doing things and feeling like he needs to do certain things. It's a weird balance between antagonist and protagonist in that for Saw 1, 2, 3, elements of 4, 5, 6, 7, and then obviously he's around the sort of idea of Spiral, and and Jigsaw is very much an antagonist. He's very much the sort of, this is a serial killer franchise. He is the serial killer, even though technically he doesn't kill anybody. Even in the films with Hoffman in, like, you begin to see this sort of more human side to him, because he's saying to Hoffman, like, you can't just go and kill people. There's got to be a reason to it. You've got to be able to show them why it is that their life is worth living, and what they've done is cheating life, essentially. Whereas Hoffman is just a sort of sadistic killer. Whereas in this, very much a protagonist. He's very much the protagonist of the film. There are so many moments where we as the audience are positioned to empathize with him, and I didn't mind empathizing with him at all. I could totally understand how he would feel, especially being defrauded out of that money and putting the trust into this company who you are supposed to believe, because you've been given the word of mouth that they actually work and the thing that they are doing works for you. And he's just trying to prolong his life. He's just trying to get more time on Earth. Oh my God, it sounds like an alien. But he's trying to get more time out of what he's got left. And he's put an awful lot of trust and faith in these people, and they've turned around and they've sort of thrown it back in his face. So naturally, I can understand how he feels. So again, it's an extremely well nuanced performance from Tobin Bell. The best acting in the franchise, bar none. And it speaks volumes that this is the only Saw film, I think, after the first, that has been received with fully positive critical reviews. There's not really been any sniffy negativity at all. And it's the second highest rated on IMDb after the first one. Now, if I was giving you my sort of rundown of my favorites, I think Saw. I've put myself on the spot here by doing this. Saw 1 is still the first. Saw 1 is still definitely my favorite one. But then I think I would go Saw 10 after that. I think I'd go 1, 10, 2, 4, 6, 3, Spiral, Jigsaw 5. Yeah, that's what it'd be. And I can't recommend it enough. And obviously, Lionsgate, I mean, credit to the people, first of all. So thank you for sending me the screener so I could watch it again. But secondly, making sure that it gets released on the 30th of October. What an absolute, genius move, because everyone's going to be looking for that film to watch on Halloween night on Tuesday the 31st. What are we going to watch? Oh, I know what's just come available for us to buy and rent, and it's still in the cinemas. Saw 10. There you go. I highly, highly recommend Saw 10, especially if you're a fan of the franchise. If you're not and you're just looking for a horror film and maybe you've seen one or you've seen one along the way and whatever, like, give it a go, because again, it's not often that you get fantastic acting in a horror film these days. But I'm really glad that they pulled this one off. So, Saw 10 is going to be available to buy and rent from Monday, the 30th of October, this coming Monday, courtesy of Lionsgate UK. You can find it on iTunes, on Microsoft, on Google platforms, all those kind of good places. Sky Store will have it as well. And I highly, highly recommend that you give it a check out this Halloween. If you want any more ideas for films to watch this Halloween weekend, or even on Halloween night, go back and check out mine and Ruby's Halloween picks, which is up on the channel now. If you're looking for something a little bit lighter, you can go and watch mine and Ruby's review of Barbie, or even my review of Duran Duran at Hollywood High, but you won't be able to get to that until next week. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, Saw is available to buy and rent on the 30th of October from Lionsgate UK at any of your regular digital download services. Stay safe, look after each other, and I will see you next time.